Hello there. Happy Sunday to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. There are at least 21 people dead, more than 70 injured after a Russian strike destroyed a 9-story apartment block in Dnipro, Ukraine. Incredible pictures there of a dramatic rescue scene this morning from that apartment building. A woman was found alive in the rubble. Rescue workers searched through the night for survivors. There are dozens still missing. Russian shelling also struck key energy infrastructure in parts of the country, causing power outages. Ukraine's president called on allies to provide more weapons to Ukraine in the wake of that devastating attack. This week, though, Canada announced it will buy a missile defense system for Ukraine. I spoke with the Defence Minister, Anita Anand, about that commitment on Friday. Minister Anand, nice to see you.
Great to be back, Rosie.
I want to start with Ukraine, if I can. Obviously, the major announcement by Canada this week that we are buying an air defense system for Ukraine. I know that was welcomed by Ukraine, obviously, but it's my understanding that it can take as long as 2 years to have a purpose-built air defense system ready to go. So how long are you expecting this to take? How do you get around that kind of timeline?
Well, it's extremely important to recognize that this was a direct ask that came to us from President Zelensky and Minister Resnikov, and we worked very quickly with the Americans to turn around this purchase, which will go to Ukraine as soon as possible. You have to recognize that we also purchased munitions at the same time, and so the delivery of both will occur as soon as possible, may involve multiple shipments, and will be delivered as soon as possible.
Okay, so the idea that it could take years, that's not accurate in this instance?
We are working to get it there as soon as possible. We are not contemplating years at this point.
I know that, as you said there, the United States is helping you source some of this. I'm wondering, do you have an idea of where it's coming from and how you're going to build this defense system?
The important thing to note is really in your question that this is a relationship with the United States that has allowed us to partner on a number of purchases, including ammunition for the M777s earlier last year, as well. The NASAMS, the air defense missile system. We are really focused on delivering aid to Ukraine as soon as possible. That's why we have delivered Carl Gustaf anti-tank weapon systems, cameras for drones, winter clothing, ammunition, M777s. This is no different, Rosie. We will make sure that this equipment gets to Ukraine as soon as possible.
Would it be a consideration here, Minister, for Canada to purchase a similar defense system for Canadian troops based in Latvia to protect them, or is that not needed?
There's no question that we are examining capabilities that are needed across the board, including the Canadian Armed Forces, including in Latvia as we move to brigade level. And so the question is a good one. How do we make sure we have the capabilities across the board that we need to procure? And as you know, I'm very focused on procurement and delivery, and that's exactly what we're working on now.
There does seem to be something happening this week, Minister, with allies procuring a lot of things for Ukraine right now. Armored vehicles, tanks coming from the U.S., Poland, Germany, France, other places. What is going on here in terms of the timing? What should we read into this push by allies to get supplies, big supplies to Ukraine right now?
This is the work of the Defense Contact Group, largely speaking, and let me just provide some insight into how that process works. We as defense ministers frequently sit around a table, virtual or real as it were, to discuss the urgent needs that Ukraine has for its fight against the illegal and unjustifiable Russian invasion. And at these meetings, we go through a very deliberate process about what capabilities Ukraine has and what capabilities Ukraine needs. It's a lengthy conversation. Each country speaks, and we hear directly from Ukraine. And what we are hearing from Ukraine, and I have many direct conversations with my counterparts, is the need for NASAMS and short to medium range ground-based air defense. In the area of tanks that you mentioned, that has been isolated as well as a need. But again, Canada is going to stay in very close contact with Ukraine and with the Defence Contact Group. So we're supporting not only Ukraine's sovereignty, but our allies and the rules-based international order.
Just to add one more question on that, on this point, is it because there was a fear that Russia was going to use these winter months to push in and really hurt the Ukrainian people and take advantage of the winter? Is that part of the conversation?
The conversation always centers on how can Ukraine be the strongest possible in terms of its defense of sovereignty, security, and stability. That's the focus. And to date, we have seen Ukraine make significant gains in the north, in the east, and in the south. And so the Allied push will continue across capabilities so that Ukraine remains strong against this unjustified and illegal invasion.
Okay, I want to turn to a different part of the world if I can, and that is Taiwan. I spoke to Taiwan's foreign minister this week about the increased flights from China into the Taiwan Strait. Will we make a commitment to Taiwan in much, although smaller scale than the U.S. has promised, but in that same way that to avoid some kind of conflict, not to get to a conflict, but to prevent one from happening?
Our position on Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific generally is set forth in our Indo-Pacific strategy. And the thrust of that policy is to make sure that Canada has an enhanced presence in an area of the world where we are seeing increased tension. And so we will continue to be there. And from a defensive standpoint, that means that we will add a third frigate in the Indo-Pacific region. We will contribute to joint military exercises with our partners and allies. We will make sure that we have enhanced cyber capabilities and increased training in that area of the world. And so this is part of a strategy across government, and we will see enhanced defense presence in the Indo-Pacific writ large.
Just last question. The fear from Minister Wu, the foreign minister, is that China is starting to learn lessons watching Russia's invasion into Ukraine, and that they might take those lessons and actually dare to go forward when it comes to Taiwan. Would that be a concern that Canada shares?
We have a concern about rising Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific, particularly in the area of the Taiwanese Strait. We participated, therefore, with the United States, for example, in a sail-through of the Taiwanese Strait this last year and the year before. We also are monitoring UN sanctions in that area against North Korea for a similar reason, that we need to make sure that Canada has an increased presence in that area, and we are cooperating with our allies to ensure substantive engagement occurs. So that's our focus right now, Rosie, and we will continue to ensure that we are there. When I was in Singapore last year, I delivered a similar message to our allies and partners. Canada is there. Canada is a Pacific country, and Canada will ensure that is participating in Operation Projection, in RIMPAC, with our allies to ensure that that increased presence is felt.
Okay, Minister, we'll leave it there. Very good of you to make the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosie. Take good care.